First month of 2024 is in the books, and Mazda has just smashed an all-time record for January. We're going to get into the auto market here in the United States and look forward to where it's going in 2024, and it will benefit the customer absolutely. Inventory is improving, prices are coming down. We're going to get into all that good stuff. Meanwhile, at the end of this video, we're going to talk about the other side of the world, what's going on in China, and it's so interesting. While so many of the brands that are thriving here in the United States, you look at them in China and they are sinking. So we'll talk about that as well in the back end of this video, and let's get into it. Guys, if you like my industry auto news updates, especially when it comes to sales, make sure to subscribe, hit that like button, and also smash the like button for Mazda. I am driving the CX-90 plug-in hybrid this week, and it's pretty good. So we had a big finish to 2023 for automakers, but in January, it fell off of a cliff, and sales have pretty much flatlined to 1.06 million last month. Industry experts were estimating that it would increase 8%. What the heck is going on? And now with the falling sales in January, the experts are only estimating about 14.8 million sales in the auto market this year, and forecasts were up all the way to nearly 16 million. Now, January is typically a really slow month. I remember January, February being horrible in the sales industry. I remember selling like three cars a month. It was absolutely abysmal, but that was for Lexus, and Lexus is actually getting hit a little bit harder than Toyota for January, but that'll change as the year goes on. But they're saying despite January being a slow month typically, they're saying it was the lowest selling month for January since 2012. And that was when we were just getting over the 2008 financial crisis. So what does that mean for the rest of the year? It will be interesting. Make sure you are subscribed because I will update you on these sales as much as possible. Also, fleet sales are growing substantially. It took up about 21% of all deliveries or all sales in January. That's an 11th month high. And typically when you see high fleet sales, that means less retail sales. That means the average Joe going to buy a car is not doing it as often anyways. All right. So lower numbers of just normal people buying cars, higher numbers of businesses buying cars, rental fleets, that sort of thing. Now, automakers don't really like selling fleet. It's there to help them if they need to sell excess volume. They would rather sell retail because they make a higher profit selling to Joe Smith next door. All right, so we have the sales tallies here. And then Automotive News also broke down how individual automakers are doing for the sales for Toyota. They'll say which models are up. So we'll get into that here in a little bit. But Ford up 4%. Compared to last January, that's pretty good. Lincoln up 20%. I think Lincoln's kind of on a small hot streak. They have the Chinese-built Nautilus coming in pretty soon here as well. Acura down 9%. Now, I guess we'll talk about them here in a little bit, but mainly what's down for Acura is their best-selling sedan, the TLX, and I think also the MDX was down as well, which is their cash cow, their number one seller. So if those are down, the company is going to be down. Honda, though, doing well here. I think the CR-V is really pulling a lot of weight for them. A lot of their large platform vehicles, like the Odyssey and the Ridgeline, those are actually down. But I think I remember seeing the Pilot doing pretty well. So Honda up 12%. And if you include Acura, 10%. Genesis, they never break down sales figures, but they have a growing number of crossovers, right? The GV70 is pretty good. The GV80s, well, I'm not saying pretty good. It's really good. The GV80 is pretty good. I like the GV70 better than GV80. I just drove the GV60 fully electric. I didn't want to see that car go. I really, really like it. It's tons of power and nice luxury at the same time. Hyundai, though, look at what's happening with Hyundai. So Genesis doing well, but Hyundai falling off nearly 9%. And Kia actually outsold Hyundai again for the month of January. Kia just down nearly 2% there. So very interesting that Kia's doing a little bit better than Hyundai here. Maybe it's because they have better designs, better incentives. Not quite sure. Mazda, out of all these companies, look at what Mazda's sticking out. Why are they sticking out so much? Well, you could say the introduction of the CX90 alone really helped catapult their sales into another bracket. And this also sparked the best selling January of all time for Mazda. They want 2024 or 2025 to be their record breaking year in North America. I think their best year dates back to like 1986. So this might be the year for Mazda for them to reclaim their old glory and blaze ahead a new trail for the small Japanese automaker. Like I said, reviewing the CX90 right now, and it is so good. All right. Hey, look at this. Look what I stumbled upon. We have Mazda sales reports for January. Taking a step away from automotive news for a second, they have an amazing write-up of course, all the automakers, but they can't go into detail into Mazda that much, right? It's not a Mazda only article. That's something I can do, though. Best January sales ever with 30,279 vehicles sold. Best January sales of the CX50. Now, we also saw that the Corolla Cross was up, which comes out of the Alabama plant as well. So no surprise there, the CX50 is doing well. Best January for the CX30 with 7,773 sold. Mazda 3. Production is back on the table, boys. It's back on the menu. We have an increase of 83% year over year or 75 month to date. That's on a daily selling rate. So we're not going to focus on DSR. So we'll focus on this column right here, the second from the end, the year over year change. So Mazda 3 up 83%. Huge volume returns. And the sedan and the hatchback are both seeing massive gains. MX-5 Miata tumbling, but they're switching over to the ND3 with the updated headlights, updated infotainment, updated safety features, that sort of thing. It's also got some new performance updates as well. Make sure to watch my MX-5 review or briefing on the new model. So CX30, 53% up. CX5, their best-selling vehicle, up 3.7% on a volume rate. And gosh, we need a new CX5 on the market, but the current one's is so damn good. Just needs a hybrid, and then it'll be perfect. A CX50, up 121%. Okay, we don't have, this is just gravy for them. They don't have, the CX90 wasn't on sale last year in January, okay? It sold 3,300 units, so that's padding their stats as well. It's outselling the Mazda 3. So the most expensive Mazda, the CX90, is outselling their cheapest Mazda, the Mazda 3, by 500 units. That is absurd. Now, they're both fantastic vehicles. Actually, there's not a bad Mazda in the lineup after they killed the MX-30, right? I mean, I would say the CX-50 is my least favorite out of all of them. Watch my CX-50 review. But yeah, the CX-5 to me is just, it's the near perfect like mid-size crossover. It's a great bang for your buck. And the CX-30 is just kind of shrunken down version of the CX-5 in a lot of ways. So we can see Mazda up 42% on a car volume, 30% on a light truck volume, which is their crossovers. So total up 32%. They had one more selling day in this January compared to last January. Let's get back to automotive news. Subaru of America just kind of floating around, but I think it's been many, many months at this point of improvements. I think it's double-digit months for improvement for Subaru. Lexus up 10%, still pretty good. Toyota up 25%. As a total, they're up 23%. So the world's largest automaker still building momentum in 2024. Now, the first half of 2023 for Toyota was really rough. They did not have the microchip shortage situation figured out. It wasn't until the second half of 2023 where they started gaining momentum. Now it's all guns blazing for Toyota. They're doing really well. Volvo just sold their share in Polestar. They're no longer financing Polestar. And as a result, shares jumped for Volvo, but also look at their sales percentage also going massively high, like Toyota, like Mazda. So good for Volvo. You guys know I like Volvo cars quite a bit due to their design and their smoothness. You know, one of the reasons why they said January sales were a little bit lower than expected was due to the terrible weather across the nation. We know that the EV market is really slowing down as well. I'll have a full video coming out tomorrow on EV market, where it's at right now. I'll probably do that as a weekly update because there's just so much EV news around the world going on. I can't keep up with it. I'd have to be an EV dedicated channel. So instead, I'll probably have one mega video come out like every Sunday. That's something I'm considering right now. Don't hold me to it, but I have like a week's stockpile of articles I want to break down for you guys to paint the current picture of this slowing EV market. So it's very interesting what's going on there. Even the total year's estimates based off of the month of January were pretty low. If we look at what the real picture is when you combine everything together, they're thinking about 16 million vehicles total in 2024, but we'll see. That could keep coming down depending on what the market's doing month over month. It was 15.6 million in 2023. Also, what's crazy is Toyota beat out General Motors again for sales, not by much, 600 units, and is now the number one automaker in the United States. Now, I think in 2021 and 2022, they were the number one automaker in the United States. General Motors took it back with authority last year in 2023, and that's where they should be, due to their production capacity here in the United States. And Toyota really doesn't have any desire to be the number one seller in the United States, but it might happen over time. The way Toyota's increasing production, they just broke a record for total production and sales of all time in 2023. And 4 years in a row, the number one automaker. So Toyota could just keep slowly expanding their market share here in the United States. All right, let's talk about the models for Toyota that are doing well. Corolla up 36%, Camry up 32%. That's interesting because we're switching over to the new Camry. So the new and the old Camry is essentially the same vehicle. It's the same platform, same frame, same door panels, seemingly, same fenders even, just different bumpers, different lights, and different interior. So that's why the Camry is able to sell so well, even though they're getting ready to switch it to the new redesign. I use that term loosely, but I will be driving the new Camry hybrid only, right, here in April. So stay tuned for that. But Camry sales doing well. RAV4 up 55%, the nation's best-selling non-pickup truck vehicle. Corolla Cross up 70%, so they're able to finally get production better out of the Alabama plant. 4Runner up 27%. Tundra up 49%. I'm seeing more and more Tundras on the road, the new ones anyways. The Tacoma tumbled 54%. And that's because you have a massive departure from the old Tacoma to the new Tacoma in terms of platform, technology. Everything on the new Tacoma is completely brand new. So they had to shut down production, switch everything over for the new one. And that's why production is or sales have been completely fallen off a cliff, I should say, for the Tacoma. But the new Tacomas are hitting dealerships already, and they will slowly get up to the production volume where they should be as the best-selling mid-size pickup truck. Toyota has a 30-day supply of vehicles. Lexus has a 54-day supply. So Lexus's supply for vehicles is about where it was before the pandemic. If I remember right, they had about a 60-day supply typically. Toyota should have also a 60-day supply as well. So there's still such a high demand for Toyota vehicles that their supply is not, you just don't see the amount of Toyota sitting on the lot that you used to still. Now, going on to Ford a little bit, they're up about 4%. F-Series is down 12%. Explorer up 21%. Maverick up 98%. Bravo. We need the Maverick up hundreds of percents because the demand for that truck is fantastic. Watch my review on the hybrid Maverick. It was fantastic. I also really like the Bronco Sport, and that was up 4% as well. Mustang Mach-E down 51%. Ooh, that is, I mean, Ford was losing over $30,000 for every F-150 Lightning. That's why they scaled down production to a third of what they were expecting, maybe even less. So Mustang Mach-E is probably also bleeding money for them, and the lack of EV demand, or should I say the diminishing EV demand right now is really hurting these companies. Even Tesla, right? Their profit margins are down to like multi-year lows at this point. Back to Honda though, Accord down 18%, Civic up 24%. And the CRV was up 32%, and the HRV, yes, HRV is also back to high volume production out of their plant down there in Mexico. The Aguas Calientes, is that what it is? That might be Yeah, the Celaya plant. The Aguas Calientes is pretty close to it, as you can see here. I think that's where Nissan's plant is. So, and Honda's electrified models set a January sales record of 17,004 with the CR-V hybrid and Accord hybrid. So electrified for most manufacturers means anything that has an electric motor in it. So some even claim that's a mild hybrid. But for Honda, they have strong hybrids, and we have the Accord hybrid as well as the CR-V hybrid posting best January ever. And the CR-V hybrid is now the best-selling hybrid in America, at least in 2023, outselling the RAV4 hybrid. That's fantastic. Now for Hyundai and Kia, things aren't as rosy for them. Volume down 8.6% again for Hyundai, snapping 17 consecutive monthly gains. Okay, that is crazy that they lost all their momentum at this. Well, I wouldn't say all their momentum because they're still selling at super high volume historically for Hyundai, but they're no longer just smoking everyone else. Kona and Palisade were generating higher sales year over year. Just two models. Two models. Those are the only two generating positive sales. The rest of them were negative. Elantra and Sonata saw declines of 20% or more last month. Kia also dropped nearly 2%, which was the second consecutive monthly decline year over year. They set a record with their light trucks, but that was offset by their low car deliveries, especially the rest in peace Kia Rio. In January marked the sixth time over the last year that Kia has outsold its father company, you could say, Hyundai. That is mind-blowing. Subaru's just kind of floating around. You know, even though they're up 0.3%, it's still their 18th straight monthly gain. So that's interesting. Hyundai and Subaru started their comeback at the same time. Subaru's is still barely holding on where Hyundai really fell off there in January. 15 consecutive months for gains for the luxury Hyundai maker Genesis. Mazda set a January sales record with U.S. deliveries jumping 32% for its third straight monthly gain. Compared to last January, incentives are up about 75% to $2,346. Okay, down a little bit from December. That's always the case. But the fact that it's so close to December means the market's really struggling at this point to buy new cars. It's really slowing down for the consumer and, of course, the dealers at this point. So they're going to have to really increase incentives here in 2024. They're saying leasing is projected to account for about a quarter of retail sales, up 8 percentage points from last January's 18%. This is great news for everyone. Prices for new vehicles is down to $45,106. There's at a point last year is up to $48,000. So automakers offering more affordable vehicles because interest rates are so high, they have to produce more lower trim or lower model priced vehicles. So and prices are down about $1,600 or about 4% from last January. Now, there's more to this article a little bit, so if you want to check the description, it will be in there if you guys want to read it yourselves. But this is also very interesting. So we're going to talk about the EV market and just the overall market in China. EV market. EV is what carries most of the headlines over there in China. And I will have a dedicated EV video, but since we're on the topic of sales and we're talking about a lot of those companies that are doing well in America, but floundering in China. So let's get into what's going on. They talked about how Mitsubishi just kind of vanished without a trace. They had been there forever. I think they peaked their sales 17 or 18, 20, should I just say 2017 or 2018. And now they're not selling in China at all anymore. Honda shrank 10%. They were up, 10, 12% here in North America. To give you an idea, Honda sold 1.3 million in the United States, up 33%. Okay, that was in 2023. So let's get back to that article. They're selling, so they've flip-flopped. They've the Chinese sales in the past were above the North American sales. Now that is different, right? You have the gain in North America, the loss in China. Nissan dropped 16% to just 790,000 units. Toyota is still clawing in there as best as possible, down 2% to 1.9 million units. That's 20%, guys. well, a little less than 20%, right? Because they sold 11 million units last year, but they sell so many cars over there in China. It's impressive. But it looks like hybrids are in really high demand there for the Japanese automakers. We know that their battery electrics just can't compete with the upstart Chinese like BYD and even Tesla over there. Okay, internal combustion engine cars, including hybrids, sank 7%. That is not what's going on over here in the United States. Hybrid sales are rising. Battery electric vehicle sales are also rising. In China, it's the opposite. Combustion engine and hybrid sales are going down. And the new energy vehicles, which include EVs, plug-in hybrids, and fuel cell vehicles, grew 30% in 2023 when the rest of the car market only grew 4% as a whole. Volkswagen was actually in the positive 2%. This is how many this is crazy. Volkswagen is a weak company in the United States after Dieselgate especially. So Volkswagen is selling 3.23 million units in 2023. That's over 30% of their sales volume is China. So Volkswagen is very dependent on the Chinese market. The Japanese automakers, yes, absolutely. I would say Honda is really dependent on them. Toyota, not as much, but they still sell tons of vehicles there, right? And Nissan's just in a whole bunch of hurt right now. But anyways, General Motors, Buick slumped 20%. Buick is not doing that. I mean, Buick's okay here in the United States, but that's mainly due to the success of their imported Korean branded cars. Yes, most of the vehicles that Buick sells are from Korea, operating out of the old Daewoo plants. And they're built really well. They're great cars. Watch my review. What was it? The Trailblazer. I think that one was made in Korea, if I remember correctly. And I thought that was a really nice little car. So with that being said, let's keep moving. They're saying because of the competition in EV prices, it's really putting a dent on internal combustion engine prices as well. So they're saying the average price cut per Chinese vehicle came to about 26,000 yuan, which is 3,600. So we just talked about how in America, what are the incentives? 2,346. Okay, so the Chinese incentives are much, much higher than they are in the United States, about 50% higher. However, that's just the average, right? They're saying internal combustion engine car discounts top 30,000 yuan, more, so it's about $4,000 at this point. Jaguar selling over there in China, their discounts are 115,000 yuan. I don't know, basic math off the top of my head is probably $12,000. BMW cuts are about $63,000. So that's probably like $8,000, something like that. And then Cadillac, 56,000 yuan. Volkswagen over 30,000 yuan. Honda is not incentivizing as much, or Nissan, 25 to 23,000 yuan. And BYD is only incentivizing 5,000 yuan. Now, BYD is also getting plenty of stimulus from the Chinese government, which is also probably helping their bottom line. They don't have to discount their cars as much, or they're able to reduce the MSRP quite a bit. It's hard to say, but we know that there's unfair practices going on. And that's why there's a huge probe going on from the European side of things, because the Chinese cars, they don't want the Chinese imports in Europe to take over their market, and then therefore they will lose their manufacturing and lose their economies as a result. So they're doing probes into China to see how unfair these incentives are to subsidize the Chinese companies building their EVs, for example. And China has passed Japan at this point for the world's #1 automaker. If we look at Nissan, for example, they're like, hey, our sales volume is falling in China. So our Chinese built vehicles, maybe we just have to export them to other countries. So the Japanese car companies are contributing also to their lack in domestic product in Japan, because they're building more cars in China and exporting those cars as a result as well, due to the falling demand for Japanese cars in China. It's crazy. Honda saying we won't give up that easily in China. their market is about 50% bigger than the US market. So they can't, even though they're selling less seemingly in China in 2023 compared to the United States in 2024, they know that they have a far greater opportunity to seize more market in China. There's just more buyers there. There are more people. There is more money in some ways floating around in China than it is in the United States right now. I don't know if they're ever going to be able to reclaim market share at this point, especially with the success of Tesla and BYD. Japanese brands had a 17% market share in 2023, down 7 percentage points from 2020, and it's going to keep going down. I wouldn't be surprised if, I mean, Nissan can't really pull out because they can produce cars there, then export them, which I don't know how profitable that is. So it'll be interesting. Everyone other than Tesla and BYD and maybe some other Chinese companies, maybe like Geely, for example, the rest of them seem to be struggling a little bit. And I think Geely might even be struggling. So I'm going to end it there. Thank you guys. I'll catch you in the next video. Subscribe for more industry auto updates and come back tomorrow where I'm going to paint the picture of where it is right now, the EV market here in the United States and maybe across the world as well. So stay tuned for that. Have a good day and peace.